Okay, we're almost there. Welcome to part 8. We're going to be putting the finishing touches on this one. The map sensor, the EVAP purge solenoid is going to go on there. We've got to put some hoses back on. Spark plug wires will hook up in this episode. That big front wiring harness we're going to put on. The throttle and cruise cables we're going to hook back up. Alternator B+, serpentine belt. Then we'll fill it with fluids, fire this thing up and check it. Thanks for coming along.
Okay, first up, let's plug in the map sensor. There's it. Now the hose. That's all the way in. Now we can put this other hose back on. And over here, this gas line, but there's the map sensor screws. There are 2 of them. I believe we're 8mm. We'll turn those in with a wrench. 7mm. How soon they forget. I got to get a wrench for this, as I recall now. You can't really get a socket back there. Now you'll notice it mounts down here. There's a little guide pin on it. It's going to rest in there. And then there's where the mounting bolt goes. See my finger there. So we're going to grab this and slip it back underneath the transmission dipstick and get it down into its position. Okay, get the guide hole in there. The guide. Can I remember we had to slip this plug back into place here on top of the manifold, the upper manifold, and we hadn't removed there. And we could do that without taking out. And it's going back in here a little harder than it came out. I'm going to back off these screws a little bit more. I think we got this back in by lifting these screws up a little bit more. So now it's seated in there nice and clean. So now we can tighten these down the rest of the way. Okay, on the other side here, the PCV valve back in place. Alright, let's turn this in. This one's 10mm. Okay, evaporative canister purge solenoid valve mounted. Okay, so now this fresh air hose can be reinserted. There, it's in there. Brake vacuum hose back in place. We put the 3 rear plugs back on the coil pack. 1, 3, and 6. Okay, now by way of redressing the wires, let's get them back in their cable routers. Let's put the throttle and cruise control cables back in this bracket. Remember, the throttle cable is the one that fits in the square opening here. And the cruise, the round one. Okay, we're going to wind this up, and now this barrel part on the throttle cable slips through like this. that there. Okay, now on the cruise control cable, again we have to wind this a little bit and then get the cable on it and plop. There, it snaps into position. Okay, let's pull out our wiring harness. It's been tucked away during the duration of this repair. I always look at a picture, when I have a picture of this, how this is laid out, before I try to put it back together. How it went in there. And we have 1 and 2 over here to the right on the duct. This group right here goes under here. Number 6 is going to wind up on the EGR valve. Now this part over here gets tucked underneath this spark plug router, and then there's the last 3 over on this end. So there's the general lay of the land. Up through here between this eye hook and the PVC valve, PCV valve, and onto the back. So plugging these back in reverse order. There's number 8, alternator. Number 9 is back in here on the coil assembly.
Okay, number 10 is for the upstream oxygen sensor, which is kind of hanging there. So kind of reaching in here and trying with one plug in one hand and one in the other, trying to make this connection here on this number 10. Okay, now we're feeding it through the cable router here. Trying to anyway. Okay, number 7 is just to the right of the coil assembly. Okay, that's in. Now we're moving in this direction. So number 6 is on the EVR, exhaust gas recirculation. Number 5 is a tough one. Number 5 is down here on the side of the throttle position sensor. We have all these lines that are in the way. See it right down. Wow, it's so jam-packed with gas lines and components down here. Okay, there it is. You see it right here. See that bit of purple there? There. There, it's in there. Number 4 is the evaporative canister purge solenoid. You see it right here. Okay, that one's in there. I'm going to tear off the label. As I'm doing this, I'm tearing off my labeling. Number 3 is the intake air control valve right here on top of the throttle body. Okay, that one's in place. Number 2 is the intake air temperature sensor on top of the air duct. And number 1 is the, I believe this is the mass airflow sensor. Okay, now we're going to route the alternator cable. Take these apart, they always go back together again. And mount it right here on the alternator. This is the battery plus voltage.
Snug it up good, don't overdo it. And just put the boot back on. Okay, let's put the front spark plugs back in, utilizing our numbering system, which hopefully I can still read on here. Okay, number 5, number 4, and number 2. So we're going to just slip them in. Okay, there's number 5. And number 4. And here's number 2. And then these fit in, of course, over on this cabling router. And we'll lock it into place. Okay, let's put our 3/8" square drive into the tensioner there. So this is a one-man technique that I use. I slip the belt down here, hold it, basically hold the tension off, and then slip the belt in. For starters, it goes up over the, let's see, get a view here, up over the top of the alternator, and from there, if you look at the little diagram here, it helps. It's going down to the tensioner, around the outside of the tensioner next. Now I'm going to put it under this idler. And the trick is always to keep it, as you do this, to keep it in position, because it'll tend to jump off. And next I'm going to try to slip it down under the bottom, under the crank and the AC compressor. And then after that we'll bring a loop, we'll make a loop and bring it back up over that upper idler. Okay, I've left a loop here now. I've got it going around the water pump, but I'm going to leave the power steering pump for last. So now we're going to reach down in there and bring up a loop and loop it around this idler. Okay, so here we are, slipping it over that lower idler, making sure that it remains seated on the crankshaft and the power steering pump. Now if everything stays in line, you should be able to bring it up and seat it on the power steering pump. So now we can take our holding tools off. Belt is on there. It's time to put in some fresh oil. W30. Okay, oil fill is done. Okay, we're going to replace the coolant. It's important to put new coolant in with a problem like this. We need the anti-corrosive additives that can wear out an old coolant and have been implicated in this problem by some. So I just got it right into the radiator. I'm going to dump, like I said, got a 50-50 mix here, this peak. Okay, we got as much as we could into the radiator, put a new cap back on there, and now we're going to go over here and top off this coolant overflow tank. Okay, so the only thing that remains to do now is hook up the battery Oh, that was 8mm. Get into our little space here. Alright, get that good and tight. Okay, we're all done with this 3.4 liter GM V6 in new oil, new coolant. Everything's looking good. Hope to get some quality miles out of this vehicle yet. Thanks for watching.